And welcome to the Phoenix Suns Solar Panel Podcast. My name is Tim Tompkins. Joining us today, Mr. Dave King.
Hello.
And of course, Greg Esposito.
Oh,
So, Dave, how is, now that the Suns are no longer matching, the matching portion of Brightside Night is over and done with, how did that turn out for you?
It turned out better for me than it did for the Suns in Mexico City. We have already, after only 10 days of donations, including now last year we got Suns matching for over 1,000 of our tickets of the 3,300. This year we've had Suns matching from the start. And we are over 3,300 total tickets between donations and matching already after only 10 days. So when the Suns play the Kings on January 7th, we'll have probably over 4,000 tickets being handed out for that game on behalf of us from Brightside. And those kids hopefully will cheer like crazy for a Suns win against the Kings in early January. I'm very excited. I'm very humbled by how quickly everybody acted this year. Thank you very much for your big donations. We had some big donors. We had some small donors. We're going to continue to have donors for another 2 weeks. I'm very excited about this. Thank you.
So talk to me. So you're talking 4,000 kids, right?
That's what I'm shooting for now, and I think we may even get a lot bigger than that. But I'm going to start with 4,000.
What is the organization of that come night of even look like?
Well, luckily, I've got a really good partnership with the Suns group sales and charities area where they deal with this all the time. They bring in groups all the time. A lot of times it's groups of tickets bought by an organization and for the people in their organization, and other times it's donated tickets where they will do some kind of community outreach and donate tickets themselves without matching donations from someone else. We are the only ones actually who do the ticket drives this way, where we collect most of the money and then the Suns match some or all of it. How does it come together? It's a pretty big deal. We have already reserved all the pregame, mid-game, post-game stuff that the Suns do to attract people and give interactive fan experiences. So we're going to let these kids come in early, right after 5 o'clock, right after the doors open, and come down to the lower level and watch the Suns players warm up for about an hour and a half or so until they go to get their seats. We're going to put T-shirts, Brightside Night T-shirts on a big bunch of their chairs where their seats are, and give those out. The overall organization of getting all those kids in, the packs of tickets are going to be at a booth right inside the main entrance. So they'll come and they'll grab their tickets as they show up. They'll know which sections they're in and stuff like that beforehand. But they'll show up the night of. They'll collect their tickets. They'll go grab their seats. It's just a really fun time, and certain groups of kids will be invited to do some of the different interactive things throughout the night.
Cool. So people can still donate, can still $9 gets a kid a ticket. They go to suns.com/brightside.
Right, and who knows? We may actually get another source of matching the ticket donations, but definitely your $9 gets a kid in. And that's always been the case, and will continue to be the case. So we can sell as many tickets as we want, and if they run out of seats for the January 7th game because we sold so many, we'll get them in the next game or the game after that. It's really, really worth it. You're changing kids' lives. See, this is all about changing kids' lives. I was talking to a friend of mine just the other day who was saying that what really, really got his daughter into sports at 10 years old, 12 years old, forget what age she was, but when she went to an NFL game, literally being in the stadium. And this is just a different example of a kid going to a live game and then suddenly becoming a sports fan. Now she watches the Suns constantly. Now she watches the Cardinals constantly. She watches that team because they were on the road. They were in Tennessee, so they watched the Titans. So she watches that team. Now she's suddenly a big sports fan. She's playing sports. She's getting involved. And she hadn't really done that before, going to a live pro game. That's what these kids are experiencing. And the same thing happened to me. I became much more of a sports fan after going to a game. And we need to build that next generation of sports fans. And this is contributing to that.
Certainly, especially after losing an entire decade of fans just because of not being one of the better teams in town. This is one of these things that helps build these kids enjoyment, because sometimes parents aren't going to take their kids if a team's losing. We have a very fair weather group, and this gets kids in to experience what it's like to watch a Suns game. And regardless of how a team's playing or not, to Dave's point, when you go in person, it changes things. It's a very cool experience, especially because these kids get to get really close in warm-ups and see these guys up front and see what it's like to be that close.
Really are.
Yeah, like there's a sense of awe when you get to go down there, and I think it's something even. And Dave, you can attest to this. You do it more often than me now, but even as adults, even people that get to do it as often as people in the media, there's still that sense of, wow, this is pretty cool when you step right near that court during warm-ups and you look around and you go, this is different. This is not something that everybody experiences on a regular basis, and just think about it from a kid's perspective. Getting to do it, it has a big impact. So, Dave, congratulations on the effort so far. I hope that we surpass that 4,000 that you're even projecting at now. It's great stuff that you do. So I hope you take great pride in it. I know that's not why you do it, but I hope it is something that you feel very good about. I know I give you a lot of hard time on this show, but this is one of those things that I never would, because it's amazing what you and Brightside do here.
Well, thank you very much. And let me address the winning team part thing, because I get arguments about that all the time. And you didn't say this just now, Greg, so I'm not saying you did, but a lot of guys will be like, oh, I don't want to send the kids to watch a crappy team. These last 10 years, it wasn't worth blah, blah, blah. Kids watching basketball, they don't care who won or lost. In fact, most people I've talked to about their very first pro experience, they don't remember the score. They don't remember who won or lost. They just remember people running around doing some incredible stuff that they've never seen before. That's what the kids are experiencing. They're experiencing that hot dog. They're experiencing that Coke. They're experiencing sitting in the seat amongst 20,000 other people. They're like you said, down near the court for the warm-ups. They're experiencing seeing people bigger than they've ever seen before. I mean, my youngest, when one of her first games she ever went to, she got to stand near Shaq. And she's like, oh, my God, that guy is huge. And then even one year just standing next to Hamed Haddadi. And she was in awe of how big these guys are. So kids don't care who wins or loses. So it's really worth it to go. And I don't like it when people say it's not worth donating tickets because the Suns suck, in prior years. It was worth it. And these kids, it's changed their lives and it's changed their outlook on sports. And I'm really proud of that. I do have a huge sense of pride from doing this, but it's the pride of creating experiences for people that wouldn't otherwise ever get that chance.
So the Suns, you guys want to talk about this? The Suns losing to the refs last night in Mexico City.
So speaking of a group that gets no charity, it's the
I mean,
oh my God. Let me tell you, I thought I was watching an old-timey Suns Spurs game where the Spurs did every little tiny thing right. The refs did every little tiny thing to help the Spurs, and the Suns just made boneheaded play after boneheaded play, and then followed up with an incredible play to pull themselves back in it or up, and then make another boneheaded play. I mean, that last 8 seconds alone, the Suns made some of the dumbest things. Dumb mistakes.
Okay, hold on now. Rubio was clearly grabbed on that inbound where it wasn't called. The ball clearly went off of DeRozan's leg.
It didn't. There's another angle. It went off Bridges'
Here's
head.
the thing, that other angle doesn't show the ball going that far. So yes, when you only watch the one angle that doesn't show DeRozan's leg, it didn't go off his leg. But when you watch the full angle, it clearly does. The ball
It,
changes direction after it hits his leg.
it hit the top of Bridges' head. If you
Yes, it
watch,
does. It does
What
hit
the
the
hell
top
was
of Bridges'
Mikal Bridges
head.
doing laying on the floor?
But this isn't the point.
Can I ask
I'm
this question?
you were
Look, Mikal had he got 10 rebounds in that game. He really tried his butt off, and we've heard before where Mikal doesn't love banging down in there amongst those trees because he's not the thickest dude in the world. And he was fighting hard all night long. And the reason the Suns couldn't get rebounds sometimes is because LaMarcus Aldridge would just move people out of the way, and Mikal would be one of those little pinballs. He'd just bounce off of. But what was Mikal doing literally half a second after the ball hit the rim on that missed free throw? Mikal is prone on the ground. You don't lose your balance like that. His head never should have been there for the ball to even come close to bouncing off of.
well, the whole thing was
it was still a messed up call though, and this whole like spreading the only angle that's now going around Twitter is the one that cuts off DeMar DeRozan, and that part infuriates me too.
There is a second angle that shows it straight on. You can see DeRozan's leg, and you can see it actually hit Mikal Bridges' head and change directions, not DeRozan's knee. That's not the Rubio non-call is a bigger factor. And Dave's right. The Suns made a lot of mistakes that cost them as much as the refs did. It was the case of Greg Popovich's teams are always very disciplined, and this Suns team's still learning how to be that, and that was the difference in this one. The refs just didn't do the Suns any favors in it. I'm not going to blame the refs that it's all their fault. The Suns did plenty to put themselves in that position.
The big 8-point swing where Patty Mills made consecutive threes on possessions, those were bookends on the refs missing an out of bounds off of LaMarcus Aldridge that they didn't even take the time to review. And you could even see it on Aldridge's face that he knew he was faking, his reaction pointing the other direction when the ball had clearly gone off of him. And then the Suns argued so badly they got themselves 2 technicals, including Devin Booker arguing in his street clothes on the sidelines, but he walked out onto the court. Come on, if there's any franchise in the freaking league who knows don't step on the dang court, it should
against
be the
Spurs.
So Greg Popovich, after the game, said 3 words to somebody in the media, and those 3 words were "Phoenix got robbed," and then he walked out of the room.
Oh no, I don't think that was yesterday. I think Fox Sports Arizona thought it was yesterday, but I don't think it was. I got to verify that. But sure? Somebody later was saying that was him after a game a couple years ago. I got to look it up, though.
Look, the Suns...
Sorry, I don't think that was yesterday.
I don't feel like... They robbed themselves as much as the refs robbed them. And I love blaming the refs as much as anybody else, but... There were little things that they did wrong too. Like this is a team.
Oh no, sorry, Tim. I am wrong. I just looked it up. Somebody else had said it was a different day. He said more than 3 words, but he did finish with "Phoenix got robbed." Absolutely,
yep. You're and then walked out of the room.
100% right.
I know, because it was a bad call. He knows it was a bad call. Everyone knows it was a bad call. Like, and the thing is, I will never give the refs a hard time about a bad call that isn't reviewed, because they're humans and they make mistakes and there's a lot of things going on. But when you review something and you still make the wrong call, that's when I get angry about it.
Well, yeah, that's certainly a frustrating case. And I almost feel like when you go to that review, it should be somebody in the league office making that call, not the group that's sitting there that made the wrong call to begin with, because sometimes self-preservation comes in and you don't want to necessarily admit that you were wrong, so you're biased towards the original decision you made. Like, we all fall prey to that, so I feel like it should probably be taken out of their hands at that point, so you remove that factor of it for sure. But, man, this team is it has an immense amount of heart to continue to battle in these games, and in most cases battle back even when they fall behind. But they've got to learn how to close out, and they just have not learned that. That's been a big part of a lot of these games this year, especially the close ones. They can't close out in the end real well, and that's the next evolution this team needs to take. If this is truly like everybody wants to think, this is a 40-plus win team and a playoff team, they've got to figure out how to win a game like that. Even if the refs are making bad calls, they've got to figure out ways to not foul on a drive to tie the game at the end, to play better defense on the final shot, to all these little things that it takes to be a winning team, and they have not closed out well yet. No. And granted, on Saturday they were playing without Deandre Ayton and they were playing without Devin Booker, but the Spurs aren't a very good team either. That's just the reality of where the Spurs are this year. So they should have been able to close out against that group, and they just did not do the little things that it takes to win in the NBA when it's a close game.
There's been some people saying that the Suns need to trade for a new backup point guard instead of try to groom one of the ones they have, or keep expecting things from Tyler Johnson. And one of the names being thrown out there lately has been Patty Mills. A, the Spurs are not going to trade Patty Mills. They're not going to give up on the season. But B, holy crap, did Patty Mills actually prove what a much better backup he would be than Tyler Johnson. Patty Mills took 14 three-pointers. He scored 26 points in the game. He wasn't very efficient. He had 23 total shots, 26 points, but he was relentless on helping the Spurs win that game. And how did Tyler Johnson do? I think it was over.
Well, the difference with the Patty Mills, too, is you saw it at the end of both regulation and overtime. This is a guy that just gets things done, you know. That's what he manages to do, even in crunch time. He just has that ability to close out,
So I want to get a couple of CTAs out of the way. First off, I want to thank a listener for being a supporter of the show, Benny Compian, excuse me. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate it. If you feel like you get a lot out of the Solar Panel podcast or the YouTube version of this, and you want to become a monthly supporter, hit the support the show button. There's a $1, $5, or $10 option. If you do the $10 option, I will personally send you some Sun swag. We really do appreciate your support there. If you want to support the show and you're watching on YouTube right now, biggest thing you can do is hit that thumbs up button. It really does help with the YouTube algorithms.
Benny, thank you.
Should we call them podcastic supporters instead of athletic supporters? And no, good. Nobody jumped at that one. I'm going to do it anyway.
So let's talk about where the Suns are right now. The Suns now sit with a record of 11-14 as of the time of recording this podcast/YouTube show, which is on Sunday, December 15th. They're 3-7 over their last 10. However, over their last 7, I think that they're 3-4. The Suns now sit in the 8th spot, tied with the Kings and OKC, with the Wolves, Blazers, and Spurs all within a couple of games. Essentially, you have 5 teams right now that are all trying for those final 2 playoff spots, 7th and 8th seed. I want to talk about some of the records of how some of those other teams have been performing over the last 10 games, because I do think that this is interesting. The Kings over their last 10 are 4-6. Like I said, the Suns are 3-7. The Thunder are 6-4. The Wolves are 2-8. They're losing every damn game that they can right now. And the Spurs are 5-5, and the Trail Blazers are also 5-5.
So the Spurs have had 4 straight overtime games, and they're 3-1 in those overtimes. I actually don't think the Spurs little mini run is sustainable as it is. They may continue getting better because they have good veterans on that team. But this little run is a little bit of it's going to come back down to earth for them unless they start playing better as a team. And the Suns should have beat them on Saturday.
Look, the Blazers are the team that I think we all know. I think we all know are going to make a run here. They've got too much star power on that roster to not actually be better than they're playing right now. But of the rest of those teams, I don't see one that stands out as being significantly better than the Suns, especially when you get Ayton back in this fold. I don't think that there's anybody that's going to run away with that spot to the point where the Suns can't keep up, but they need to find their rhythm again. They need to find what made them a darling in the first 10 games of this season, and it was just that willingness to pester people on defense and really get people annoyed with them. And Aaron Baines needs to re-tap into what he had there, and I think he will as he shifts back to that backup role once Ayton gets back, because it's less minutes, but he can expend more energy in that time. I think we'll see some of that, but they just need to find a rhythm. I still believe in this group. I think that this stretch reminds them that they can't overlook anybody, that it's going to take an immense amount of effort to win. But a game like Saturday night reminds you this isn't the same team we've seen, because in the past, or last season, even if Ayton and Booker are out last season, they lose by 40. Like there's no doubt about it, you know?
Yeah. The team is really, really interesting to me, just because what do you expect is the Oklahoma City Thunder. How the heck are they already? They're at 11-14. They're being competitive, and yet every single player on that team is expecting to be traded in the next 2 months. But they're somehow putting that aside and just winning games anyway. They're probably not going to make the playoffs. They're probably going to end up making trades. They're going to send Chris Paul somewhere. They're going to send Steven Adams somewhere. They're going to basically rebuild because they have 5,000 draft picks coming in the next few years, and they want to develop Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They're just so fascinating to watch. But yeah, you kind of have to rule them out. At least I do. The Timberwolves, I rule out, as Greg said. The Spurs, I just don't see it. I just don't see it with the Spurs. They may find that magic juice and it could be, the Raps that are the magic juice for them. But I just don't see it with the Blazers. They're relying on Melo, and is really Melo the answer to making a playoff run anymore in his career? I'm not really sure.
Not long term, but I mean, there's still you still got McCollum, you still got Lillard. Of the group, that one has the star power you'd expect to be able to lift you out of a slump. Melo's a nice boost there, but that's the one I look at. I think Oklahoma City, it just comes down to there's not much else to do in Oklahoma City, so you might as well at least try to be good at basketball if you're stuck there. But yeah, you're right. That's going to be a roster that looks drastically different over the next 2 months, and not one that's trying to win necessarily. So I think it's going to probably come down to the Suns and Kings. Looking at it, I think that's probably where we're going to land out here at the end, and I feel pretty good about the Suns' chances being better than the Kings.
That is wild. So the Suns do have a really hard schedule coming up. Part of this hard schedule, though, is worth noting an addition that is very much going to be welcomed at this point in the season. So they have the Blazers, and some of these games are they need to win these games too. So they have the Blazers on Monday. You have Ayton coming back on Tuesday versus the Clippers. You have the Thunder on Friday. Then you have the Rockets, the Nuggets, and the Warriors. The Suns desperately need to win at least 2 or 3 of those games. But especially they need to get that W against the Blazers, and they need to get that W against the Thunder. But we do have Ayton coming back versus the Clippers on Tuesday. What kind of impact is this realistically should we expect for it to make for this team?
Well, I don't think you should expect much in game one. I hope you see an immense amount of energy and a purpose from Deandre Ayton, but he's going to be rusty. I mean, anybody that sits out 25 games, whether he was practicing or not, is going to wind up being rusty. So I don't expect him to look like an All NBA player in Game 1. I expect him to be efficient, but I think it's going to take a few games for him to find that rhythm. But what we need to see is a guy playing with purpose, a guy playing with a chip on his shoulder because he's embarrassed and he's upset. And that's what the Suns need. They need an engaged Deandre Ayton. They need him to prove that he has evolved past what he was last year, which was very good. And we don't deny that on this show. We're not one of the groups that's like, oh, Deandre Ayton sucks. No, he's a very skilled big man, but he needs to take that next step. And that I want to see that energy, that passion, night in, night out. It needs to be consistent, which is what was lacking in year 1 with him. So hopefully this entire saga has changed that mindset for him. That's the only positive that could come out of this, is that he comes out more focused and playing harder than we've seen from him. Now, my biggest question is, does Monty actually want him to stretch out that jumper and take threes? Not an aggressive amount, not a huge amount, but is he going to take three-pointers at all as he comes back? That'll be an interesting question for me. I expect his impact in a week or so after he comes back to be very significant, because it's going to change what they can do offensively. Ricky Rubio now has a partner that he can lob to in this group. It makes the bench that much significantly stronger, right? Because you've got Aaron Baines that shifts back to backup center and puts Frank Kaminsky back at his natural backup power forward position. So all of a sudden, this bench is stronger than we've seen as well, and we get to understand what that full vision that James Jones had for this roster when he put it together was. Now, how Monty Williams handles rotations will be interesting to watch too, because this will obviously change minutes and how you're going to have to handle it with this group. But it means that basically your biggest question now becomes, who is your backup point guard? It's not how do you make the center position work. It's not how does Frank Kaminsky do out of position. It simply becomes, okay, everybody else slots in where we expected them to be. Now, how does backup point guard come? But Ayton should have a fairly significant impact.
Ayton will have a big. Go ahead, Tim.
I was just going to say that even a Ayton that is not quite at 100% ready or polished at this point would still be a welcome addition.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, on Saturday we actually got the first game that I can remember where Frank Kaminsky and Dario Saric both had good games at the same time. Usually they trade off who's going to have a good game, and one of them is just awful. And Saturday, another reason I'm really disappointed the Suns lost is both those guys really played well. Dario Saric had 17 rebounds and 19 points, and Frank had over 20. It was a really, really good game for both of those guys. But having said that, Ayton will make things better. Ayton will provide a lot more size in the middle. He can get those rebounds. See, where the Suns are still struggling is actually reaching up higher than anybody else to get rebounds. And if they don't box out guys, now Sarge and Frank have done a pretty good job of boxing out so that the Suns aren't getting killed. They were only out-rebounded by 3 on Saturday against the Spurs. And so that's going to, the Suns will be a better rebounding team with Ayton. They'll be a better, more efficient team on getting scores down near the basket when they need to have some quick scores, so they don't have to have perfect ball movement every time, or Booker going off, or somebody making a bunch of threes. They can score in different ways when Ayton gets back. Will the Suns be any better? Well, yeah. I mean, they'll have a better chance to have a 7 to 10 point lead going into the last few minutes. But you can't count on Ayton being the guy who's going to not make those boneheaded plays on like the Suns did on Saturday. Ricky Rubio made some boneheaded plays. So, and Aaron Baines even made a couple of plays that could have been better. And it's expecting Ayton to suddenly make the Suns win these close games is tough. But expecting Ayton to help get the Suns in better winning positions so the games aren't as close at the end? Absolutely. He's always been a winning type player in terms of doing all the stuff during a game to help you get closer in the score or take that lead. He's just still the youngest guy on the. Let's remember, he's still the by far the youngest guy on the team. He just turned 21 this past summer, whereas the rest of the team is 22, 23, 24, 25. There's a couple of guys over 25, and that's it. It's really disappointing that Tyler Johnson can't be another vet that settles this team down this year. So right now, all they have is Ricky Rubio and Aaron Baines being the settlers, basically, and calming guys down and making smart plays. We cannot expect the Suns to get smarter with Ayton just because he's 21 years old, but we can expect them to be better and be in better position to win on a nightly basis going into that fourth quarter.
Yeah, look, what you expect is you don't expect him to change how mentally they played. You're right. But what you hope in a game like Saturday's against the Spurs is you're not in a position where it's that close at the end, where those mistakes become as catastrophic as they are, because Ayton should be able to help you put distance between you and teams that are significantly inferior. And at full strength, I think the Spurs are significantly inferior to the Suns roster. The fact was they just weren't at full strength. So that's what you hope DeAndre Ayton does, to your point, is gives you a larger cushion so you have a larger margin for error going into those final few minutes. He's definitely not going to make you smarter in those final minute or two. Any
and
guy
it's
that
unfair to expect him to. I know people are going to say, "Yeah, he's a dumb player," but no, he's a kid. He's not going to be the one who makes those game-changing, smart plays. He might make some game-changing athletic plays, but they won't be the veteran, wily, smart plays. That's all.
Yeah, you're 100% right. He's still a kid, and that's acceptable. There's a lot he has left to learn, but hopefully that athletic impact earlier in the game gives you that better margin for error.
Can I just talk for a second about the schedule not being anyone's friend right now? So, Tim, you talked about the upcoming games. They have Monday at home against Portland. That's after flying 6 hours each way, probably, or minimum 4, even if it was a straight through, to Mexico City and back over the last 3 days. Getting constantly hounded by media all weekend, almost like an all-star weekend kind of event where there is no downtime for these players all weekend. And then coming back and playing at home Monday night against the Trailblazers, and then immediately the next night being in LA to play the Clippers on the road. And how many have the Suns played the Clippers not on a back-to-back in the last 50 years? It feels like every single Clippers game is on the back end of a back-to-back.
You didn't even bring up the worst part of this, right? The Suns have been in Mexico City dealing with all that, the flight, everything. I'm pretty sure the Blazers have been here since Friday.
Yeah, the Blazers have not played since Thursday night.
Yeah, they showed video from the Suns practice facility yesterday that they were here chilling in Phoenix practicing, and the Suns are schlepping their butts back and forth from Mexico City. So that doesn't exactly seem like the most fair way to schedule something. Right. You think after the Suns do the league a solid and go to Mexico City to do this, sacrifice a home game to go down there, the schedule makers wouldn't screw them over by having them play a team that's been sitting in their home city for days and hasn't had to play since Thursday. You know
what would help with this is what Bill Simmons has been calling for a while, which is getting a 72-game schedule. I mean, honestly, 82 games are just too many. There's always going to be unfair points, and I agree that this was not great by the schedule makers, but every single team is just going to have a crap like this happen. And if they could just get it
only the Suns, Tim. Everyone else has it easy.
Look, I get it. I get it that it happens, but the Suns literally did the league a solid by going down there, right? This is all about expanding the game.
Sacrificed a home game too.
Yeah, this is all about expanding the game. I understand that you're just going to get screwed sometimes in the schedule, but that does not seem like the time that the league should give a big FU to a team in terms of that. You would think, I get it randomly, but that's the one case that you would think they'd go, you know what? we're going to ensure that this isn't a potential schedule loss on Monday because of the factors that the other team,
You're right. They should bring out somebody from the East. Actually, the East has been pretty damn good this year. I just want to make one final point before we move on to talking about potential trades now that trade season has officially started. Is that with Ayton back in the lineup, the Suns are going to have somebody that Ricky Rubio can actually pass the ball to roll to the basket, which Aaron Baines, I love him as a player. He's not a very good role man. I think that'll be amazing. Also, just getting Deandre Ayton to have the ability to get some putbacks, which is something that the Suns do not really have. Almost we see like one a game. You can count on 2 or 3 from Deandre Ayton over the course of a game. That's between 4 and 6 points, which is the margin, and a lot of these games come the end of it anyway.
Well, and that the cutting in the basket, the lobs, that's going to wind up opening up things for some of these shooters. Just the threat of that after he gets back in the rhythm, and his passing. I think people underrate that, but he's pretty damn good at, even if he gets the ball, he's very good at kicking it back out to find the open man. So this should make their shooting better as well, or at least the looks that they're getting. I won't say it helps anybody else make them, but it should give them better looks. So all these little things should add up to a big impact moving forward.
Yeah, he's got to get more integrated with the team. Now, having said he won't be, he's got to reacclimate himself after being out for so long. I mean, he had a pretty darn good opening night and the first game of the preseason as well, after having, these are each new experiences this year. He'll be good on his first night. What I want to see from him is consistency and consistent effort game to game. He always puts out effort, but I mean higher end effort than he's given in the past. I mean, he can roll out 16 and 10 on a night with a block. I'd like to, and I don't necessarily want to look at counting stats to be a deciding factor for him. I just think consistent effort is important and should be expected.
So trade season has officially started. Players that were signed over the summer can now be traded. Pretty exciting. We spent a lot of time talking about the Suns' need for a power forward. I do think that might change given the fact that we're going to have Ayton back, which means that, to a point that Greg brought up earlier, we're going to have Kaminsky as the backup power forward. I also think there's some opportunity for Monty Williams to play Ayton, dare I say, at power forward next to Aaron Baines. So to me, that position isn't quite as important. I do want to jump ahead to my stat of the week really quickly because I want you guys to take this into account for discussing what the Suns need the most. So my stat of the week, the Suns, in the course of December, the only 2 negative net rating 5-man lineups that they had in December that played any amount of meaningful minutes anyway, that wasn't garbage time, both included Ty Jerome at point guard, and this is regardless of Devin Booker being on the court with him at the end of those quarters to close out the games. When Ty Jerome is the point guard for the Suns, their offensive rating drops to 89. They have an effective field goal percentage of 39%, a true shooting percentage of 41%, and the pace drops to 105, down from 112. So not only is he a slow player when he's running the point, the Suns just aren't getting good shots, right? Individually, Ty Jerome, his offensive rating is a 76, which is awful. That being said, the Suns have a lot of backup point guards on the roster right now, none of which are playing very well. But there is also, I think, an argument for perhaps the Suns going after a solid backup 2 when Devin Booker isn't on the court. And we've also spent a lot of time talking about the power forward position. Now that we're heading into trade season, what is the biggest need for this team right now?
I still think it's a true backup point guard because Tyler Johnson isn't really a backup point guard. Elliot Kobo really isn't a backup point guard. And Ty Jerome is a rookie who's coming off a serious injury that kept him out for the first 5 weeks of his rookie year, so you can't expect him to automatically step in and be exactly what you need. I think long term, he's got the passing ability to provide you with what you need, but I think you need to find a solid veteran backup point guard if playoffs is what you're shooting for this year. If that is the goal, if that's the serious uh, push that you want to make, I think that is the most glaring hole. You can survive with Frank Kaminsky playing hot and cold, right? I mean, you can survive there with him as your backup power forward. Now your backup center position is set. You can deal with Devin Booker's backup being sometimes a Mikal Bridges playing out of position, or one of these small forwards playing minutes there. But backup point guard, it grinds your offense to a halt when you have a guy like Tyler Johnson out there, or even Elliot Kobo, whose offensive aggressiveness has been better from his own standpoint, but he's not getting his teammates involved, and that's what you need. So I think backup point guard is the biggest need that isn't going to cost you a lot. Long term, it's finding that long term answer at starting power forward, but short term, if you're looking at what can you fix at a cost that's probably more palatable, it's backup point guard.
Yeah, I love the idea of a Patty Mills, of course, after watching him score 60 or 26, felt like 62 points, but 26 points on Saturday, and making all the big shots. Man, that guy, he is a fire plug, that's for sure. He'd be fun to have on the team. Someone like a JJ Redick to run around screens and make even more shots. But I really think the player needs to have a defensive skill set to him. And so, because really that's where the Suns are struggling. I mean, they're still 6th in the league in offense. They're doing fine on offense, especially with Ayton coming back. They're going to be even more than fine on offense. Where you've got to have some better skill is on defense, and the Suns, whoever they acquire, can't just be simply an offensive player. They got plenty of those. So I would rule out a JJ Redick for that reason. But there's got to be somebody out there they can acquire that for a wing, guard position, someone who can back up Rubio and also play, next to both Booker and Rubio, has some size, can shoot, and can at least put out, maximum effort on defense. That would be really fun to see. Ty Jerome, as you pointed out, Tim, he's just been god awful, and he's just not ready. The NBA is too fast for him right now. Doesn't mean he's not going to turn into a really good NBA player. It just means that in this moment he has not been very good.
He's been bad,
real bad,
yeah.
Real bad. But to Monty Williams' credit, after giving him 6 games to try to adjust and not seeing that, Ty Jerome did not play a minute on Saturday. It was Elliot Kobo as the backup. Okobo did not have a great game. So unfortunately for Okobo, he didn't set the world on fire. And Tyler Johnson got minutes without Devin Booker in the lineup. Mikal Bridges started, and that was good. I really thought that was a good plan to start Mikal Bridges so you have more defense out there throughout the game. But Tyler Johnson got some run, and it was bad. And so those guys had a chance to step up and say, this is my position. Neither of them did it. Monty might give them, it seems like he gives 3 or 4 game runs to guys. So we might see the Okobo Tyler Johnson combo for another week or so and see how that goes. I don't know what happened to Tyler Johnson. He's just not very effective right now in this offense, and hasn't been this year.
So what's your prediction then regarding the trade season?
Trade season, I think it's going to be a perimeter player, guard sized, who can back up Rubio in spots, kind of like and not necessarily different than Tyler Johnson, where he's not really an assist guy, but he can run a team and not make boneheaded mistakes. So I think they'll probably end up doing that. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it comes down to. You need a guy that can keep the offense calm, can not turn over the ball, can keep guys involved, and just keep a consistency when Rubio is off the floor. What what intrigues me, and I'm gonna play pie in the sky, let's go. Hey, what's the ideal situation? If Minnesota keeps losing like this, at what point does Karl Anthony Towns just pull the "I'm done with this"? Right? I mean, you're sitting up there. It's winter in Minnesota. You literally have to walk through walkways to get anywhere in the city because it's too cold to actually be outside, and you're losing like this. At what point does he just go, I'm done with this crap? And if you're the Suns, that's when you go, all right, now it's time to consider acquiring one of Devin Booker's friends because that's the guy that of the group that you would really want, right? Like
Oh,
that.
absolutely.
That's pie in the sky. If everything were to work out, that guy becomes available. That's the most intriguing thing to me this trade season. I don't think it happens before the trade deadline. I have a feeling if it's going to happen, it's probably the off season when he pushes for something like that. But man, that's sitting there knowing they're 2-8 in their last 10. And you look at it and you go, I really hope that happens. That's why I become even more hesitant on the Kevin Love thing as I think more about it. Is okay, sure you could put some assets into that and get a guy that could potentially be an answer at power forward for short term, but if you make that move and then Karl Anthony Towns becomes available, even if it's 4 or 5 months later, how pissed off are you at that point? Like that's the guy that you've been waiting for to push all your chips in.
Absolutely. I think if you had a chance to acquire Karl Anthony Towns, I think you do whatever it takes. I really do. I think he is who we want Ayton to be.
What if they required Devin Booker in return?
Oh,
No.
okay. Sorry. No,
No.
not Booker. Sorry.
Then you tell him to take a long walk off a short
Yeah.
pier, and you hope that Ayton becomes that guy.
That's just swapping one who needs a second for another who needs a second guy. So no.
How pissed would both of them be too? Oh my gosh, I'm going to Phoenix. Wait, Devin's going back to Minnesota? Like that would
I would do, and some people can remember this and call me on it later, but I would definitely obviously do Ayton because that is the swap that Minnesota would be interested in, and I would include Mikal Bridges in that. Because Karl Anthony Towns has that star power and has reached that where you want Ayton to be, and the two of them with Booker and Towns with a Rubio and a Saric and guys like that around them to be smart players, I think that can really push you right into solidifying perennial playoff contention.
Yeah, and look, I'm a true believer in at some point you are going to have to make a major move because this is. No matter that Devin Booker is getting better and getting more clout with players around the league, at some point you're going to have to acquire somebody via trade to bring them in here because the chances that you're going to land the big fish in free agency, you're gambling there, right? The only thing you can truly control is trading for a guy, and I think at some point that's a move the Suns are going to have to do. The question is, how long do you wait, and what guy do you wait for?
So
interesting. So December 15th just hit, and that's why Tim's bringing this up because now almost everybody from the summer who changed teams can be traded, which was at least a third of the league, if not half the league. There has not been a trade in the NBA since July, and this is the first time the NBA has gone this many days in an eligible trade period without having a trade be recorded. This is the first time ever. So there will be trades. We just haven't seen them yet. And I'm just curious to see how different this league is going to look in a month or 2 months.
So would either of you be willing to bet a mortgage payment, or in your case, a rent payment, Dave, on the Suns making a trade before the deadline?
Yes, I will bet Dave's rent payment on that. No, I think they will make a move. I don't know that it's going to be a big move, but I think they will make a move.
I won't make any bets. There's quite a chance that they won't know enough. James Jones already said he wants to wait a month once Ayton's back. If Booker's out for a significant amount of that time, he's going to want to wait even longer. I don't think. You might see a little tinkering around the edges, but that'll have to be a great tinker opportunity that doesn't really hurt the team in any possible way. It won't be I'm not going to bet anything on a big trade. There might be a small trade.
I don't think Ayton and that whole comment that James Jones made impacts trying to find a backup point guard. I think that was more in reference of we're not going to make some move to acquire some big name power forward or something like that till we understand what we have with Ayton and that group.
Yeah.
Once we understand that rotation, I think it has very little impact if you're looking at backup point guards.
I would be surprised if they have an expiring $19 million contract that they just let expire. And a guy that's clearly not contributing to any sort of wins for the team. I mean, it's not like I would be pretty surprised.
The position they're in is they can't actually use that 19 if they let it expire because they're over the cap for other reasons next summer. So
right.
There is a little bit of incentive to try to do something about it. But having said that, they'd probably just have to acquire another $19 million contract or something like that, like a Jeff Teague. People are throwing out Jeff Teague's name. That would be interesting as a veteran backup point guard. He's also about the same salary and expiring, I believe. So that would be more like a type of move where James Jones did it last year, swapping Ryan Anderson's big contract without a rotation spot for Tyler Johnson. Now, a year later, maybe Tyler Johnson without a rotation spot for somebody who could be in the rotation for about that contract. So that's kind of the kind of thing that James has done in season before. So that kind of trade would not surprise me.
But then you go back to that, and I think you're going to have to, if you're looking at that, you're going to have to gamble on a guy that's a question mark in some way, right? Which leads me back to Kevin Love. If they're going to gamble on that.
Swap big contracts for guys who may or may not end up in the rotation. I think a Tyler Johnson for Jeff Teague is a good swap.
That could be.
Yeah, but Minnesota wouldn't do it. I mean, that's
if you throw in like a second round pick, I mean, they're otherwise not going to get anything for Teague.
Right, but they don't. Minnesota literally does. They aren't starting a point guard right now. Like they really need a point guard, and if they have any sort of playoffs hopes, it's not going to be. And believe me, they have playoff aspirations because of talent.
So this is exactly what people should be thinking about, right, Tim? They're not even starting Teague. That's how bad he's been, and they need a point guard.
Right, and so it's not going to be for Tyler Johnson. They aren't going to say, "Hold on, give us a worse backup point guard," because we're really going to just blow this season, knowing that Karl Anthony Towns really wants to make the playoffs. Like that, unless the Suns throwing like a first round pick, I don't see or a Mikal Bridges, and I don't think the Suns want to trade Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges is very valuable.
You want to get crazy.
That would be funny if the Suns acquired Jeff Teague as their trade with Minnesota this year. That would only be if Minnesota is punting and they may have sent Cat somewhere else. That would be disappointing.
How about you want to get crazy? If Portland continues their slide and one of those guards become available, do you get crazy? Do you consider getting crazy and picking up one of those guys? Look, if we're gonna do what I advise against and let friends use ESPN Trade Machine, like does something like that intrigue you? Do you go, hey, a Lillard, a McCollum?
I like how you just casually throw out one of those guys when one of them is Dame Lillard.
Well, I'm just saying, at some point, Portland's got to look at that and go, all right, we've got what we could get out.
In a Damian Lillard, I don't know.
Well, but the question is, do you mess with the chemistry of what's going on here? And
you can get Damian Lillard if you can get him. I think we're really talking about CJ McCollum, right?
Yeah, well, probably. I highly doubt they're going to move Damian Lillard.
Lillard's not going anywhere.
They just extended him.
Is CJ McCollum. CJ McCollum is that dude where you're like, do you really want to do that? Because he's making Booker money, and he's not going to be your starting point guard next to Booker, so he would be your guy off the bench, and you don't want to pay your third guard $25-30 million.
And Suns could go crazy and start Rubio, Booker, and McCollum.
Hey, let's be honest here. They're already paying their third guard $19 million right now.
Yeah, and you don't want to commit to that for the next several years.
That's fair.
Let's just so right, you guys want to do Espo's Dunc-y award?
We got a good one this week. We need something for this. I need to either make a real award that we can email these people or something. But this week I struggled. There were two that were well deserving of it. The honorable mention was Valley of the Suns for. Did you see this tweet yesterday? They see a clip of Deandre Ayton practicing right from the Suns account, and somebody over there decides to tweet about how looking at this makes me think this isn't a very athletic, all-time athletic kind of guy. There's all sorts of concerns. It was literally like a 30-second clip of Deandre Ayton running a drill. There was nothing to it. It's just asinine. But this week's Dunc-y goes to, and to remind you, this award was named after the late great Nate Duncan, who has blocked every Suns fan because he's an ass. So, and this award honors tweets that make you go, what the hell were they thinking? This week it goes to Dana Scott over at AZ Central, who tweeted out a Dwayne Rankin piece that said, quote, could Monty Williams eventually become the New York Knicks' prodigal son, returning to where he began his NBA career as a player? Phoenix Suns beat writer Dwayne Rankin analyzes this, as well as other top storylines. Okay, I don't. This is no disrespect to Dwayne, because I actually understand the position he's in. He's being told generate clicks at all costs because that's what you're being judged on and how you're going to be paid. Clicks?
New York fans.
Yeah, so to me, I don't blame Dwayne. I blame the system that Dwayne has to work within. Right? And I don't even blame. I don't know Dana Scott. I don't even blame that person for the tweet. I blame the system that they find themselves in. The fact that journalists now, writers like this, are required to generate page views at all costs. That's what's trying to keep these publications afloat. And in turn, it sacrifices all quality and credibility because you've got to do anything to get people to click in a world that's full of just ridiculous noise. We've seen it with SI and their new ownership with Maven, where they fired pretty much anybody with credibility to basically create a click farm, right? It's all about clickbait right now, and it's ridiculous. You should not be basing this stuff on how many people click. It should be all about who's consuming at a large rate for a long period of time. It's about time on site, and it's asinine that these guys are put, and these women as well, are put in this situation where all that matters is how many clicks can you generate, because it creates a lot of crap. It does not create interesting, compelling storylines or unique opinions. It creates crap, entire sites of crap for that matter. So for that, Dana Scott, and really more the management at AZ Central, you win the Dunc-y award this week.
I think that was a pretty good award, Greg.
Thank you.
Yes. And obviously, Dwayne Rankin, the last thing he's sitting up at night thinking about is whether Monty Williams should end up in the Knicks in 2 or 3 or 4 years or 5 years after his contract is up. That's the last thing Dwayne wants to worry about right now.
Well, and it puts him in a crappy position because then, Monty Williams sees that. I'm sure he does, and then it's just this awkward thing. It makes issues with probably with Dwayne and the organization. Because like, why are you bringing this up during a run? And the answer is simple. He's got bosses that are pushing him in a direction that you never should be pushed.
Yeah. Good one, Greg.
All right. Well, that was good. I liked it. That was good.
Your praise is all I live for, Tim. So.
All right.
Especially that enthusiastic praise that you just provided there. So.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so we get 8 back this week. The Suns have a really tough schedule. They're tied with a whole bunch of teams for 8th in the West. It should be pretty telling. Hopefully, we're going to be back this Wednesday. I guess it just kind of depends on whether or not the Suns are playing that night. And I don't. They're not. That they are.
Play Monday, Tuesday, so we can dissect what Deandre Ayton does in his first game back against the Clippers on Wednesday. So,
which, by the way, I guess I'll point out to anybody that for whatever reason it takes time out of their schedule to make sure that they can watch us on Wednesday nights. We have internally seemed to figure out on accident that if the Suns are playing that evening, we are not going to record an episode. So just an FYI, if the Suns are playing playing on a Wednesday, we will not be live during that game.
Unless it's some weird East Coast game where we can go live right after it finishes. But we figure you're all watching the Suns and not watching three guys sitting in their homes talking about the Suns when they're playing. So
without even watching the game that's currently on.
Yeah, we have a good feeling that that's the way that would net out. So, yeah.
Plus, we want to watch the game. And sometimes Dave's actually at it. So
Depends on who they're playing sometimes. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, so, but this Wednesday they are not playing.
Look, hold on. I am Brody in the chat just said Espo is the Charlemagne of the solar panel. I'm not really up on my history. Does anybody get the Charlemagne reference?
You're probably just a mass murderer. I mean, I think that's Charlemagne.
Holy crap! I'm just slaying people left and right. Is that what we're going for there? All right.
Charlemagne the God, known is an American radio presenter, television.
I don't think that's where they were going with it. I love I Am Brody went to Dennis Miller. Charlemagne, baby.
Hold on. He is a co-host of the nationally syndicated radio show The Breakfast Club with DJ NV. So you are. I haven't spent a lot of. I know of the show, but I haven't spent a lot of time watching or listening to it.
I'm pretty sure he's talking about the historical.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe he's talking about the Breakfast Club. Charlemagne. Whatever. I didn't get the references. I'm not cool, is what I'm trying to let you all know, and I don't think that comes off as a surprise.
By the way,
to
to
many
wrap
people.
up our trade season thing, I posted a poll just a few minutes ago, and we've gotten 101 votes in 20 minutes. Of Yo Suns fans, what position is most in need of a trade in the next 2 months? I had power forward, backup shooting guard, and backup point guard. Which one do you think won? Don't look at Twitter.
Backup point guard.
Backup point guard.
Actually, what's winning is power forward with 47% of the vote. Out of 192 votes, 47% of the vote goes to power forward. Man, people just don't appreciate Dario Saric. That guy is killing it lately.
It's that haircut.
Great job. Yeah, but okay. So stop looking at his face and his hair and all that stuff. And the fact that he can't jump more than a half an inch. He's Jared Dudley of power forwards. I get that. But man, that guy has been balling out. He's averaging a double-double over the past couple of weeks. He's getting those rebounds that the Suns need so badly. He's playing positional defense. He's boxing out. He's doing everything he possibly can. And people just don't appreciate him. I'm disappointed in Suns fans on Twitter saying he's the one who has to get replaced.
Did you just call him the Jared Dudley of power forwards? Isn't Jared Dudley the Jared Dudley of power forwards?
Jared Dudley is masquerading as a power forward in today's game. You know he's a wing. He just grew out of it.
But by the way, Brody confirms that Tim is right. So mark it down. Tim's finally right on the show.
Yeah, I was right earlier when you guys tried to call me out on that Greg Popovich.
That was Dave. I did not hop in on that. So.
Well, actually, Tim, I did further research. It really was January 29th that he said that, and somebody was retweeting it yesterday as if it was current. It's so confusing, but that is the case. It was January 29th where he said Suns got robbed. So that's 2 straight seasons where the Suns got robbed in a Spurs game.
I really feel that's Greg Popovich just trolling Suns fans. I don't think that's Greg Popovich really feeling like the Suns got robbed.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Well, it was probably him and his burner account that retweeted last January's comments yesterday. That's why it's taking off.
By the way, I'd like to let everybody know as we're talking trades, we did attempt to trade Dave to every other Suns podcast. Nobody bit, so he's here for the long run.
I'm the Tyler Johnson of NBA podcasts.
Yes.
We tried to trade to every other podcast except for 7 seconds or less. We didn't submit a trade offer there.
They would probably take me too because they appreciate talent.
We just offered to give them. We offered to give them Dave with nothing in return, and still.
Yeah, that would have been a salary dump.
Salary cap. That was the problem. So, like I said, I'm the Tyler Johnson.
Awesome, guys. Well, hey, we will be back on Wednesday, 7:00 Arizona time. We will see you guys then.
Enjoy Deandre Ayton's return, everybody.